From Thomas Edison State University, this is Edison Soundstage.
Welcome to the DEIC Studio, brought to you by the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council of Thomas Edison State University and the New Jersey State Library. Here we aim to create a safe space that generates dialogue and engagement to cultivate a diverse, equitable, and inclusive culture in our communities.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council for today's talk. He's being introduced in a minute, but let me say that Duncan Harrison Jr. is a wonderful addition to our list of thought-provoking speakers. Duncan, no pressure, but you're our third conversation on DEI over the past 2 months. From our Martin Luther King Day speaker, Reverend Dr. Boyer, to our Edison Day speaker, Aisha Thomas Petit, these conversations have left us feeling challenged and motivated to do our part in making our world a place where everyone is celebrated, supported, and empowered. I know our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council has events and engagement opportunities planned throughout the year, and I want to thank them for all they are accomplishing. I wish it were the same across our nation and around the globe. As I watch the recent heartbreaking news from Ukraine, it is clear that respect for each other and the sovereignty of our nations remains all too fragile. I hope that all of us take the time to reflect on our various speakers and think about how we can incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into our day-to-day existence. Each of us brings unique perspectives to our work and our world. That is called value add. We need to appreciate that value within ourselves and our colleagues and do our best to open our minds and our hearts with inquiry and respect. With that, I will turn it over to Angela Chapman to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hancock. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angela Chapman, Acting External Affairs Manager for Community and Government Affairs and co-chair of the DEI Events Committee, along with the amazing Tara Kent. I want to thank the entire DEI Events Committee, especially Christina and Roberto, for their collaborative efforts in planning this event. DEIC is a living entity which is open to everyone wanting to serve on the committee. So please reach out to your supervisor if you're interested, as we'd love to have new voices and faces as the term is about to turn over. As for today, I have the pleasure introducing our special guest speaker. Duncan Harrison Jr. is known locally and nationally as a strong advocate for empowering new leaders to engage in political processes. Sworn in on July 1st, 2014 at the age of 29, Duncan is the youngest African-American in the city of Trenton, 220-year history to be elected as councilman at large. He has been recognized for his service to the community by the National Congress of Black Women. He is at the forefront of the youth leadership, community empowerment, and the contemporary voice of inspiration. Duncan lectures and provides training for high school students, college students, and working professionals on the importance of participating in formal leadership platforms like student government associations, civic groups, or local and national politics. Additionally, Duncan teaches leadership and organizational strategies to help professionals perform effectively in elected positions to benefit their constituency, respective institutions, and the broader community. Duncan currently serves as the Assistant Director of Regional Affairs at Princeton University. He has also shown his passion for strengthening families and community growth as the Associate Executive Director for the Father Center of New Jersey. Additionally, he is an HR influence who has served as a Director of Human Resources for over 10 years, helping agencies build robust systems that optimize their talent. Finally, as founder of Mercer County Works, he brings his know-how of connecting employers with the right talent to produce better business results. A native Trentonian, Duncan received his Bachelor's of Arts in Sociology, focused on criminal justice from Delaware State University in May 2007. As a National Urban Fellow, he received his Master's in Public Administration from Bernard M. Baruch College, the City of University of New York. In addition, he has received certifications from Harvard University, Cornell University, and the University of Pennsylvania. Lastly, Duncan has worked on urban sustainability issues as fellow with Green for All. Duncan is also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. I will now turn it over to Duncan Harrison, who will talk to us today about why Black history is so important and what it means to him.
Awesome, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to the president of the university, Dr. Hancock, the DEI committee, and also you, Angela, for having me here today. I'm definitely very excited. And I can tell you as a former elected official, I know not to get between people and their lunch. So I'm not going to keep you long today. Okay. I've been in the Black church and I know how long it can go. And so I'm not going to keep you long here today. But what I want to do is really discuss the history of Black History Month, why it is important that we celebrate Black people as well as Black history, and how we can continue to move forward with Black History Month. And so, I was sitting here thinking this morning, like, where did Black history kind of start for me? And I can remember, in middle school when we were celebrating Black History Month, my teacher coming and rolling in the TV. Now, if you know anything about the TV coming into the classroom, you know that that was going to be a relaxed day, a day off for you to kind of enjoy yourself. No homework, no work was going to get done that day. But when I sat there and watched the teacher roll in the TV, she put in, and at that time was the VHS into the TV, and the classroom actually watched Roots. Now, I believe that was probably my first time actually seeing Roots. I had never seen it at home. And as a middle schooler, it was very kind of shocking and appalling to me to actually watch Roots, really for the first time. And as I reflect on it, as a adult, that our introduction to Black history from this teacher for me actually began with slavery. And that's not where Black history actually began. And so what I want to do is just really walk you through and kind of take you into the antebellum of where Black history actually, started, how Black History Month came to its being, and how we're going to take it into the future. So just for a couple of minutes, bear with me and we'll get through this together. So Black History Month, AKA National African History Month, was created by Carter G. Woodson in 1926 as Negro History Week to help combat racism. He aimed to educate white students and Black students about the contributions of Black Americans, many of whom were not only ignored, but were also downplayed and hidden from public knowledge. We still don't fully understand how important Black contributions were, so they were almost erased from the American experience. It wasn't until President Gerald Ford recognized Black History Month in 1976 during the celebration of the United States bicentennial. He urged Americans to, and I quote, seize the opportunity to honor the often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. But over time, people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who is often noted when we talk about Black history, started putting forth great ideas like equality for all Americans. These ideas have been used by many to promote the idea of racial equality and unity. The point of celebrating Black History Month is to raise awareness and promote the ideas and their significance in American history. So often I'm asked, especially in these days and times, why do we still celebrate Black History Month? Why is Black History Month only relegated to 29 days in the month of February? Why do we get the shortest month out of the year? So I reflect on a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King as he gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech in 1963. And he said that African Americans are owed more than a freedom that is only skin deep, and that it is our responsibility to fight for the full liberation of Black people and all oppressed people. And I want to say that again. That is our responsibility to fight for the full liberation of Black people and all oppressed people. Black History Month is an opportunity for us to pay tribute to the outstanding achievements of Black people in American history. Black History Month means acknowledging the Black community for their contributions to society and the home. Where will we be without the 3 traffic light systems invented by Garrick Morgan in 1923? How will we get our food if Frederick Jones hadn't invented the refrigerated trucks in 1940? And how many children would have to sleep without a nightlight if Lewis Latimer in 1881 hadn't used innovation to create longer lasting light bulbs? And I want to speak to the significance of that, as I am the guest speaker here at Thomas Edison State University, who worked with Lewis Latimer to actually create a longer lasting light bulb. When we think of the significance of Black history, we often talk about these noted figures of W.E.B. Du Bois, but we gloss over the some of the more tumultuous people that have gone through the test of time, like the leader of the Black Panther Party, Dr. Huey P. Newton. We look at Neil Armstrong, who was the first man to put his footprint on the moon, but we neglect to talk about Katherine Johnson, who was a mathematical genius who figured out how to get the US into orbit. So while I believe that it's important to educate ourselves during Black History Month, it's even more important for us to recognize that there is still much more for us to uncover and learn when it comes to Black history. You see, Black history, it's American history. Black history is Latino history. Black history is Asian history. Black history is European history. Black history is world history. The history of our country is a reflection of the people who made it happen. Without the efforts of Black people, there would have been no Lincoln, no Jefferson, no Washington, no Jefferson, no Washington, no Lincoln, and no Reagan. And well, maybe not Reagan, if we think about the Reagan era and the things that happened to the Black people under his leadership, but that's for a political science class. We won't delve in that today, but it's just that simple. Every president had a Black person behind them. All of those people who were the pioneers of the United States, it's not all about what they achieved, but the fact that they achieved anything at all. When you think of history, think of Black people who were there to tell their story. You may not be aware of them, but they had a lot to do with the history of this country. There are too many to name here, and there's a long list of Black notable people, and there are some people that are unnamed that we have still yet to discover. But just think about the people who didn't make it into the history class as being Black. You'll see that they helped shape this country and were instrumental in making it a place where everybody is equal and has the same opportunities. When I think about Black history, when I think about history in general, I think about a famous quote, and it goes, "Until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." And that's very important to me as we think about our past and as we move into the future. You see, history is written by the winners. And if we're looking back over the years, Black history has been whitewashed by white men who have claimed victory. And 400 years later, we still haven't fully caught up to this. But I'm glad to have the chance to celebrate the contribution of Black people to our history so that we might more fully understand it and work together to a greater future for all in this country. It is a reminder that diversity is something to be celebrated, not condemned or feared. You see, anytime that Black people have fought, they fought for all people. When we fought for civil rights, it wasn't just for civil rights for Black people, it was civil rights for all people. When we fought for freedom, it wasn't just for freedom of Black people, it was for freedom of all people. But we've come a long way since the Civil Rights Movement and the March on 1963. But we still have a ways to go and some things still to fight for. As African Americans, we must not forget that although we've had our problems, we are still one of the world's most powerful nations. Yes, Dr. King was assassinated here in this country, as many of our other Black leaders were. But has all he fought for truly come to pass? And I think that's the question that we need to ask ourselves as a community. Have we obtained true equality in this day and era? I say this to you today. We have a long road ahead. Nonetheless, we must not allow our apparent shortcomings to confuse us from seeing what we actually have right now. Now is that we have to remember the past so we don't repeat the mistakes that we have in the past. In today's society, I will tell you, there's still a lot of racism. You can turn on the TV and see racism. You can turn on the newspaper and see racism. You can walk down the street and feel the effects of racism. You can go into work and feel racism. But we must remember that this is not always the way. We must also remember that the Black community is not a monolithic community. The Black community is just made up of those who are, the Black community is not just made up of those who are angry and don't care about their lives. We're all family. The only reason I can get up in the morning is that I know that I'm loved. I know that I'm not alone. I know that there are people who will fight for me. I know that there are people in my community who are willing to die for me. And as a community, we must take pride in the great things we have accomplished and celebrated in history. Black History Month is a time to educate the world on what is wrong with this world, what happened in the past, and continue to fight until this problem is eliminated. We must not forget how far we've come, but realize that we still have a lot of work to do. The impact of Black History Month on our community is largely seen in the fact that each Black man or woman has a support system. We are all connected by the strings of fate called our African struggles, and surviving, we will, because we are a strong and resilient people. Now, I will say that when we hear the argument of why we should celebrate Black History Month and why we are relegated to a specific month, I personally think that every month should be celebrated as Black History Month. But I look at February as just more icing on the cake. As African Americans, it's important for us to remember that all that has happened in the past is up to us to take advantage of our freedom and our rights and be more involved civically and to work hard to make this world a better place. We have so much potential and power in this country. So let's use it, unify together, and continue to make Black History Month strong. Let's not be discouraged by history, but instead, let's make a change in this world, because one day soon we owe it to our fallen heroes in the quest for freedom. The impact in our lives is enormous. It is important for us. The impact in our lives is enormous. The whole world recognizes us. They see us. They understand our stories. They understand our laughter. They understand our tears. Everyone is being educated and re-educated about our history, but the whole world knows that we are seeing progress. Black History Month is now recognized as a valuable tool for teaching history to our young people, helping them understand the diversity of our community and encouraging them to think about how their own experiences might be different from those other groups. But there's a caveat. You still have some people that find it hard to look into the mirror, and so they package Black History Month up in our classrooms as critical race theory. It's no secret that some people still harbor a deep-seated prejudice against others simply because of their ethnicity or race. It's a sad truth, but there is still a significant level of discrimination in our world today. And I will be the first to say that that's not acceptable and it needs to stop. I will be the first to raise my hand to say that I will be in the forefront to help combat racism here in this country and across the world, and to tackle racism in our world today and promote unity between different races. We need to look at our past and learn from the mistakes we made. There are many ways in which people can contribute to breaking down this divide in our society. The best way that I found for organizations to have a Black History Month, maybe each year or every other month. This will act as a constant reminder that it is important to accept differences in people of all walks of life. It's a chance for people to reflect on past mistakes, challenging prejudices they still hold, and look towards the future. It's also a time to celebrate the achievements of those who have gone before us, as well as contributions we can all make to our society today. By having Black History Month, we're sending a clear message that racism has no place in our world today. It's unacceptable, and it's something we need to address. In my opinion, the official theme for Black History Month should be remembering things of the past, which is a reference to the classic poem Remember by famous African-American activist and writer Langston Hughes. It was written in 1929 and is based on his experience growing up as a child in Harlem. It's a fitting theme because we all have our memories of things past, but they can be difficult to recall and sometimes difficult to comprehend. During Black History Month, it's important that people learn about what happened in history. People should also learn what's happening today and why it's so important. Some people believe that it's important to learn about Black history because we need to understand who we are as a people. But there's more to it than just that. Black History Month brings us closer to understanding one another and uniting us as a people. It reminds us that although the world may be diverse and full of different types of people, we all come from one place. That place is Africa. That it's one of the reasons that we need to celebrate the month in the first place. It provides opportunity to bring our history to life. Today, some of the things that were important during the celebration of Black History Month back then are even more important today. There are many people who are discriminated against just because of their race, and it's important that we all learn about that. There are many Black people who have made great achievements in America, and it's important that we learn about that too. And there are other people who are not as fortunate and need our help. We can relate to someone in our lives who face hardships, but they're not like us. When people see how Black History Month is celebrated and what it means, that they are able to understand why it's so important. People will also be inspired by the speech and want to learn more about Black History Month. People should also remember why the month is being celebrated. There are many good reasons that we are worth celebrating. I think Black people in general are just worthy of being celebrated because we are a part of a greater ecosystem of the human race. And for instance, it's important to remember we came from so that we can learn from our mistakes. It makes us appreciate our present even more. Black History Month also helps us to celebrate the accomplishments of our Black friends and relatives. We should always be proud of them and show them some support. And finally, it's a good reminder for everyone that things could be a lot worse. No one is perfect. We've all made mistakes. If there are any people out there who have made terrible decisions, they probably have Black friends and relatives that they care about. The most important thing about Black History Month is learning about the past, so we can learn from it and make the best of our present. If you want to be a friend, you need to be a better listener. Black History Month is a time to reflect, regroup, and reconnect beyond the present, by understanding the role that history has played in the lives of so many. We all have a responsibility to increase our racial literacy and open minds to a history that we may not relate to, but we can also listen to. It tells us that every story, that our story is valuable. And so I told you I wasn't going to keep you long here today. And so I just want to close this thing out and kind of have a dialogue and really open the floor up for some questions. So our key takeaways from this is that we should always be grateful for the efforts of those who have helped us. And it's important to always be on the lookout for ways to make things better for the future. It's important for you to know that Black History Month is a month long, and you can learn about African-American history and culture throughout the month. So don't wait, start to celebrate. Happy Black History Month. Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan, for that insightful message. And as Duncan said, we want to open up the dialogue. So if you have any questions or any topics that you would like to discuss, we just ask that you type them in the Q&A section of Zoom, and I will ask those questions. In the meantime, we do have a couple of questions that we have from the DEIC. The first question I'll ask is, how can educational institutions such as colleges, universities, and libraries truly celebrate Black History Month in a meaningful way?
Definitely. So I think that the importance of any educational institution is really to integrate Black voices, Black literature, as well as Black curriculum into their program, right? So as we say, yes, we are celebrating Black History Month in honoring those who have came before us, whether they are engineers, architects, lawyers, individuals that fought for civil rights, that we are collectively doing that together, for the month of February. And actually, as I go back and think about it, in the United Kingdom, they actually celebrate Black History Month in October, right? And they actually celebrate the African-American diaspora of people there in October. And so I think that when we look at libraries, educational institutions, that we have to just go beyond, we have to really just go beyond the celebration and kind of integrate and make sure that we are, buying Black books, that we are making sure that we're reading Black literature, that we're talking about, different things in our curriculum throughout the, educational spectrum, and not just on, the core topics, like, once again, slavery. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who is definitely worthy of all the praise, but he has become kind of the figure in the face of Black History Month as well, where there are many other inventors and individuals that deserve to be celebrated, that deserve to be talked about, and that also deserve, really to, for people to learn about.
Thank you. All right, so another question we have is, how does an understanding and appreciation of Black history play a part in community relations in the Mercer County area?
Definitely. So I think that when we look at Black history, there are definitely a lot of notable, African American individuals here within Mercer County, but I truly believe that it really brings, a cultural understanding. And so one of the things that I speak about is really, humanity and humanitarian efforts, right? Being able to work together across cultural lines, and not only recognizing individuals, ethnicity and race, but also recognizing that, we are still all one people, right? That on this earth, that we all, human beings. So that Black History Month is, a time for us to celebrate our culture, to show individuals and, have other individuals experience our culture while being able to experience, their culture as well.
Great. So this question ties into some of the work that you've done. So what are some of the advantages for community organizations to partner with a major university?
Well, I think that, so when we look at, today's day and era, we look at, the death of George Floyd, even Ahmaud Arbery and those things, it has really propelled, kind of blackness into the economic stratosphere. And so now you have big corporations such as Target, Walmart, and the list goes on, who have kind of, taken this thing as Black History Month and, and made it, corporatized it, and kind of put it back out there. And so I think that, it's really important for us to make sure that when we talk about Black history, not only are, we supporting local, we're supporting Black people, but that we also have Black faces at the table, right? And that those individuals are making sure that they are bringing resources back to, the Black community, as well as underserved communities, right? Because I think one thing we learn, especially economically, is that when anything, any rate, any table, for Black people goes up, that's tenfold for any other, race, across the board when we look at different ethnic groups. And so I'm sorry, I got off track. Ask your question again for me.
So the question was, what are some of the advantages for community organizations to partner with a major university?
Right, definitely. I think that, it's really about, once again, having that seat at the table and really providing input, right? And especially, as I said before, Black people are not a monolithic people, right? We are a very diverse group. We, are tribal in a sense. We are, from different areas. And so, it gives that university to be inclusive and to provide, their ideas, their ideologies, as well as, their input to help, the university not only understand, what they need to do, how they can move forward institutionally, but also how they can have an impact on the community without really imposing what they think that, the Black community or, any other community may need. So really, it's really about having that seat at the table.
Got it. So now, during your talk, you gave us a lot of reasons as to why Black History Month is so important. So I'm going to hit you with a hard question. So a lot of people will say that, okay, why do we need to continue celebrating Black History Month? Black people have made all these strides. We had a Black president, we have a Black vice president, we might have a Black female Supreme Court justice. Why do we need to continue, let's say, starting in 2025? Why does this need to continue?
Definitely, and I hear that question, and I don't say I hear it a lot, but I don't believe that that when we talk about Black History Month or any other thing, that it's this or that, right? I believe that when we talk about this subject, it should be this and that, right? It's not, yes or no. It's kind of yes and, right? So, Black History Month is really, as I said, it's kind of like the icing on the cake, right? And so as we make these strides to be more inclusive, Black History Month is once again a reminder of, hey, there have been great inventors, but we've also, suffer these atrocities, at the hands of these individuals. So, when we make these strides, let's not forget, what was happening, what was done, to Black people. But I also believe that, that Black people have, really suffered and been dealt with a hand here in America and in many other countries as well, unlike any other, ethnic group. I also hear the argument that, and if we once again, kind of talk about, slavery and, how Black people were treated as chattel, I hear the argument that, oh, Black people sold slaves or Africans sold slaves, or it's a lot different, right? And so that the way that slaves were treated in other countries they were still a part of the village and the community, right? It wasn't, the system and the form that America imposed on, Africans, Black people, and African Americans. And even to move forward and past those times, we still had to deal with segregation. We still had to deal with redlining. I mean, if you look right across, the Delaware River into Marsville, there sits Levittown, right, which was a place that was, created for segregation, right, for white people in other ethnic groups to move away from Black people and to have their own specific neighborhood. And I think that we still deal with those atrocities today. And so I often ask, and I rebuttal back to individuals, well, why would you want to get rid of Black History Month, right? Why is it that anytime that Black people say that we want to have something, and it's always nothing more than equality, that it's no, you should not have that. What is it for? Why, why do you need that, right? Why do we have to bring race into the situation?
Got it. And you mentioned a lot about the struggles that Black people have had to face. So this question is geared towards you. So what challenges did you have to overcome that were unique to the experience of people that identify as Black? So you as a Black man, like what made those experiences, go right back to your race?
Definitely. So I mean, I think that, one of the unique, experiences that I faced as a, young Black man who, had a great father, but, I was into the culture, right? So if sagging pants, oversized hoodie, definitely got into some trouble with law enforcement, but also felt the, effects and experience, right, of law enforcement. I can remember, one day, right in Hamilton Township, where a couple of friends and I were just sitting in the parking lot, and the police were called. And I can remember I was behind the driver's seat, and I actually like stuck my head out the window, and the cop said, put your head back in the car, monkey, right? And so at the time, as a teenager, that did not really, register with me. But as an adult, it's like, wow, you've experienced, some things that other people would probably never experience, right? You could have been a statistic, right? And so I think being a Black man, especially a young Black male growing up here in America, has definitely been a challenge, but it's something that, we have to strive to, really fight. I'm not even fighting for, but really have to change and continue to fight, for equality here in this country, and help people see that, that we are, all of the same being, and that, Black people don't want anything more than, just to have the right for the pursuit of happiness, right?
Got it. And I have a question from our Q&A. So the question is, I'll start with the comment. It's, you mentioned incorporating Black literature and history to stay informed. So the question is, do you have any suggestions for books, both for adults and particularly children's books?
Oh, let me turn around. But no, I have So definitely, I think I have unfinished agenda back there. There's the 1916 project that just came out, which is an excellent book. Begin Again by Dr. Eddie Glaude, who's a professor at Princeton University. He has just wrote an excellent book. There's another book, The Race Against Technology, right? So if we even look at, how Google Analytics actually characterizes, African Americans when you do a Google search, right? So if you search for a Black woman, you might, see something that's like totally offensive. And so I think that these are some great, that was probably my top 3 reads that I would really suggest to anyone. And if also like The Miseducation of the Negro, if you haven't read that one, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Actually, probably what I can do, because now that's like, as you can see, I'm a book person. Definitely send out a list of African-American books. And I can't think of any children's books off the top of my head, but we have a whole nother library section over here for the children, for children's books. So.
Awesome. So I have another question. Oh, so this is just the comment saying, yes, the list would be great. Okay. So that would be appreciated if you could send that list. So I just have a question. So who is someone in Black history that really has motivated you on your journey?
Oh,
and it doesn't have to be like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. It doesn't have to be someone who's so well known, but who has motivated you?
Definitely. So I obviously, Dr. Martin Luther King, who's also a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So he is definitely one of my go-to people. But honestly, I always reference my father, right? And I think that he is probably my go-to, for the past, present, and future, because he's been with me through thick and thin, right? And so I think I had the advantage of having a strong Black male in my life, right? And so even there was a point in time where, as a teenager, I had got arrested. It was my father who stood up in court and kind of vouched for me, right? Who was there and said, this is my son. And I vouched for him, and I was able to go on and do, really some wonderful things in my life. And so I really give all credit to him. And then also, having my mother as well, who was, a strong Black woman. So probably before I look out into the world for historical figures, I definitely, want to honor those within. And I think that's what we talk about when we talk about Black history, right? So oftentimes, we cross the bridge and thinking, wow, it was our own 2 legs that helped us get from one side of the, the island to the other side. But we often forget about those who actually had to suffer and who had to put the work in to build that bridge for you to cross. And so it's important that we honor those and our ancestors that actually made that pathway so that we can walk, run, and fly to our dreams.
Very true. We have another question, and it says, one of the ways to combat racist policies is to elect officials that are willing to overturn them. How can we help our allies understand the urgency of voting for these candidates as well?
Definitely. So I think, one of the things that, well, before, let me preface that. I think that's, and once again, being an elected official, there is a saying, that Black people from the South say, and they say, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? And so sometimes you have to be careful who you elect, right? Because just because they look like you doesn't mean that they're going to represent the policies that you represent, right? Just because the axe had a wood handle doesn't mean that it should represent the trees, right? And so I think that we always have to keep that in mind when we're talking about who we elect to represent us. But there was one thing that when I lived in Minnesota for about a year to work on policies with the Northwest Area Foundation for 7 different states in urban areas. And so one of the things we developed was the African American agenda for the Twin Cities. And so we were able to gather individuals from nonprofits, the big corporations such as General Mills, Kellogg, Target, as well as charter schools, higher ed institutions, and then also community activists, and really bring them all to the table to develop an African-American agenda that we were going to present to the Congressional Black Caucus, as well as present to anyone that was running for elected office. So when we look at these policies, I think that it's important that whatever community that you're in, that you organize and that you have an agenda and you say, this is what we want to see for our community. So explain to me how you're going to make this happen. And if you can make this happen, because what often happens is we go to the voting polls saying, oh, well, that's so-and-so, I went to high school with that person, I'm going to vote for that person. Or that's, my cousin told me I should vote for that person. Or, they paid me on election day and then told me to go vote, before, we get our checks. And so I'm going to vote for that person without actually having an agenda set for ourselves to say, okay, well, what resources are we going to get when we put you in office? And so when we look at the policy making, I think that we need to have the framework, the systems and the institutions before we put those individuals into office. But then the caveat to that is that once you get those individuals into office, you have to hold them accountable, but then you also have to be their support system, right? So I've seen too many times that you put these people into office and then the people that put them in the office kind of disappear and say, you go ahead and handle that yourself, where elected officials do need the support of the community as well as to be held accountable to make sure that, they're pushing forth policies that are in the, the best interest of the community. And I will say, once again, being an elected official in the city of Trenton, you can look at the city of Trenton now and see that, we have individuals that are definitely not, acting in the best interest of individuals in the city.
All right. We have another question, and it says, as a recruiter, I'm always looking for new and outside the box opportunities to engage diverse student populations. I'm wondering if you have any ideas on organizations or groups whose members might be interested in furthering their education.
I'm sorry, ask that question one more time. I think the last.
Yeah, so she's coming as a recruiter and she wants to know if you have any ideas on organizations or groups who have members that might be interested in furthering their education. So I'm assuming furthering their education at Thomas Edison or any other universities.
Definitely. So I am, undergraduate. I went to Delaware State University. So if there are any Hornets out there, shout out to my DSU fam. And I will always say definitely connect with HBCUs. And I think it's, very important that we build those pipelines, really to do that. So my first thought would be to connect, once again, connect with historically Black colleges or universities. But then also, I'm not sure what, I guess which programs you're recruiting for, but, I know like if you're, let's just say if you're looking for, individuals to go into a law program, there are definitely associations out there for African Americans, looking to go into law. So I would just tap into those micro and subgroups, right? Especially if you're looking to get them from, really point A to point B. I hope that answers your question. If not, you can resend the question too.
Okay, so the follow-up to that is where she recruits for all the programs, but specifically with a focus on nursing. So any advice on that, where to look?
So I guess nursing is, well, once again, let me go back. I have to put a shameless plug in because I know that Delaware State University has a great nursing program as well. But I think that also, if you just kind of look at the different high schools, work with the guidance counselors, definitely, and the guidance counselors and principals to really, kind of build that pipeline. I think that's something that, they would be interested in. But I also would say that, that the principals and guidance counselors are probably only willing to take one step because they have so many other things to do that you would have to, as a recruiter, kind of take two steps and really make the job, easier for them to be able to, get you that pipeline of individuals that you need.
All right. Okay, so I have another question. You mentioned the discussion surrounding critical race theory. So this question, it concerns Black history education in schools, but specifically to you in your experience. How did you learn about Black history? Was it through the classroom or through, the conversations with your parents and family members? And which experience was more meaningful and impactful?
So I think that, when we talk about, meaning and impact, learning about self and self history and having those conversations, with my aunts and my grandmothers, where we come from, right? Who we are as a people are probably deeper to me than learning actually history really in the classroom. So I really think it's important that, Black people have a connection, of their past, right? To know, who you are, where you come from, and then your ancestral, lineage, right? And really going back to, the origin, of your family, right? And so I think for me that when we look at the curriculum, and once again, I graduated, I think, high school in 2002. So the curriculum back then was, really a lot different, and it didn't focus on, a lot of, great achievers, in Black history, or, individuals that had, contributions, right, to Black history. We talked about Abraham Lincoln, who freed the slaves, right? You had, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was a key person. You talked about, and I can't think of the gentleman's name, not Carter G. Woodson, but we talked about, it'll come to me, what other individuals, the notable individuals in Black history, but we don't talk about, and actually we did focus on a lot on Egypt and the pyramids, but we don't talk about how, Nikolai Tesla actually studied the, archaeological texture engineering, as well as, the energy of how the positions and logistics of the pyramid were set up to actually provide that energy, and brought him great ideas to be, Nikolai Tesla. And then obviously Elon Musk kind of took his name, took it from there. And so I think that, we really have to do a better job, one, as a community, and then also people in the education field that are writing the curriculum, spreading our, nets and webs, and talking about, different individuals throughout history that have made contributions. And then also I'm a firm believer of, place-based learning, right? So going to those places, and you still have individuals that may be still alive, talking to those individuals, utilizing Zoom and YouTube and things of that nature, to really rediscover and undiscover, the contributions that African Americans have made throughout history and throughout the test of time, right? And going back, to the origins of the African diaspora, and how, maybe those that, when we talk about the Egyptians training, the Romans and the Greeks on the alphabet, and mathematical and geological, thoughts of, Timbuktu and things of that nature. So I can go, really, really off. So I'll I'll keep it there.
Okay, so I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. So if you have them, fire them away, because we're getting ready to wrap up. But I'll ask you this question, Duncan. Do you consider yourself a part of Black history based on what you've accomplished?
No, so I never looked at myself, once again, as a historical figure, right? I think that, I just looked at, my life as someone who has been in service, right? And, as I come from, a grandmother who was from the South, who would, wake up every Sunday morning, and, she would have Mahalia Jackson, playing, and then she would also be frying some bacon in the kitchen. And I can remember, Mahalia singing, if I can pass someone, it's like I can pass somebody as I pass along with a word or a song, then my life will not be lived in vain. And so that's something that really kind of stuck with me, right? Really just being of service, to the community, to the people, and, trying to make this world a better place, right? Trying to make my mark on the world. So no, I don't consider myself as someone in history.
But it's funny. I wonder if Dr. Martin Luther King, your fraternity brother, would have thought the same thing, because he was a man of service. So, but
And I would say definitely not, right? Because
yeah,
if you look at, actually, there were, during his time that, there were African Americans that didn't like Dr. Martin Luther King. If he came to Chicago and, was almost, thrown out by, other African Americans that, did not believe, in his style, of activism, right? It wasn't until, I think it was the 60s or 70s when he was actually, recognized and given, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was great. So I'm going to turn it over to Roberto Smart with our closing remarks. Thank you so much, Duncan, for engaging in those questions.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Christina, thank you for presenting the questions and comments that led to a great dialogue within that Q&A session. Thank you. Everyone, good afternoon. My name is Roberto Smart, and I am the Academic Records and Registration Specialist in the Office of the Registrar here at Thomas Edison State University. I am also a very proud member of the DEI Council, and I am excited about our work to create a more diverse, inclusive, and very equitable university environment. We would like to thank Mr. Duncan Harrison for his time today, an enlightening discussion on why Black history is so important. Learning about Black history not only creates awareness, it brings ways to unite our communities together and celebrate Black excellence. Duncan, your words today were truly invaluable. Thank you. We thank you for your time. And on behalf of the university, we would like to send you a gift of our appreciation. We thank you. To everyone today for participating, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.